Many countries throughout history have banned select films for portraying their country in a negative light, for depicting excessive violence, or for opposing their country's ideals. But Saudi Arabia took this a step further by banning all public movie theaters, and this ban lasted 35 years. What led to this? What is the film industry in Saudi Arabia like today? The first theaters in Saudi Arabia were started in the 1930s by Westerners working for the Saudi Arabia Oil Company, now known as Aramco. They set up large screens in residential complexes and mostly screened American and European films. The cinema spread quickly to 4 cities: Riyadh, Jeddah, Taif, and Eba. These early theaters were not of particularly high quality because there wasn't regulation around opening or running them. This loose establishment of the film industry in Saudi Arabia remained largely unchanged until the 70s. Then, on November 20th, 1979, around 500 militants stormed the Grand Mosque in Mecca, Islam's holiest site. They were led by Johaimon Al-Otaibi, a Saudi Islamist who disagreed with the direction the monarchy was taking Saudi Arabia. Al-Otaibi and his men brandished guns they had hidden under their robes and around the mosque in the days and weeks leading up to the attack. They took some of the estimated 50,000 daily worshippers hostage and chained the front gate of the mosque. After an unsuccessful attempt to retake the mosque by some 100 security officers, the surrounding city was cleared and a perimeter was set around the mosque. Al-Otaibi and his men stated their demands over the loudspeaker in the city. Frustrated with the monarchy, they called for stopping oil exports to the United States and clearing of foreign civilian and military experts from the Arabian Peninsula. After 2 weeks of on and off attempts to retake the mosque, only 68 insurgents remained alive, Al-Otaibi included. Tired and running low on resources, they surrendered. They were found guilty of 7 different charges and sentenced to public execution. This event was an inciting point for change, but instead of cracking down on religious puritanism, Saudi Arabia's king, Khalid bin Abdulaziz, gave more power to religious conservative groups, including the ulama, who interpret Islamic beliefs into law and theory, and increased the use of Saudi Arabia's Islamic religious police. Over the next 2 decades, these increased powers led to restrictions on media, starting with printed media, where women's magazines were banned, and eventually even photographs of women in newspapers were frowned upon. These restrictions spread to digital media as well, where movie theaters were shut down and officially banned in 1983. These restrictions led Saudi citizens to find ways to skirt these laws to still view films. During the 70s and into the 80s, some informal screenings of films were held. Some sources say these were left alone, while others say they were often shut down by religious police. The key distinction might have been what types of films were being screened. Egyptian, Turkish, and Indian films that aligned more with Saudi ideals than Western movies from America and Europe were probably less likely to be shut down. These informal screenings mostly stopped by the mid-1980s once the ban had been in effect for some time. If you were wealthy enough or knew someone wealthy enough to afford a film screen and projector, then private screenings were a solid option that were mostly left alone, even including Hollywood films. For the less affluent citizens, they relied on DVD copies and eventually streaming films online. Even still, official copies of a film, physical or online, were highly regulated and films viewed as against Saudi values were banned. If you were particularly fond of the theater experience or wanted to see a movie upon release, your best option was to travel to nearby countries like Bahrain or the UAE, where movie theaters were still allowed. These conditions lasted from their original inception in 1983 well into the 2010s, when in 2016, Vision 2030 was announced. Vision 2030 was the brainchild of the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, known as MBS, which aims to diversify Saudi Arabia away from its dependence on oil. Part of this initiative was to expand entertainment in the country, which included the film industry. The initiative planned for creation of 300 theaters with about 2,500 movie screens by that target date of 2030. As of Vision 2030's rollout in 2016, movie theaters were still banned in the country, but on December 11th, 2017, the Saudi Arabian Minister of Culture announced public movie theaters would be allowed by 2018, and on April 18th, 2018, a converted symphony hall in Riyadh was specifically fitted with 600 leather seats for the screening of Black Panther, which officially broke the 35-year film ban in the country. So what is the film industry in Saudi Arabia like today? Since the lifting of the ban, Saudi Arabia's film industry has continued to grow. As of 2024, the country had 66 movie theaters with 618 screens and reached 225 million USD in revenue, about 20.4 million of that coming from Saudi films. The country has also hosted the Red Sea Film Festival since 2019, focusing on new talents in post-ban Saudi Arabia. Even though public movie theaters are now allowed, the film industry still faces heavy censorship. The General Commission for Audiovisual Media, GCAM, must pre-approve all films that are shown in movie theaters, and bans or edits of films are often enacted to adhere to the country's religious and cultural values. Most commonly, scenes of films that feature LGBTQ+ themes, depictions of religious texts, and historical events in Saudi Arabia are edited or banned outright. In fact, that 2018 screening of Black Panther was actually edited to remove 40 seconds where 2 characters were kissing.